It's Sunday night, which means it has to be time for the Wise Guys. Welcome to episode 105. No special title tonight. Yeah, I know. Surprise, surprise, considering we've had one the last couple of weeks. But it's not as eventful as the last couple of weeks have been, but we've still got a lot that we need to talk about. Uh, Michael, how was your last Sunday of March?
It's raining like hell.
Rained off and on here yesterday, today. It's going to rain all day tomorrow. So yeah, it's April, so we all know what they say.
Yeah,
Although the
April
weirdest
showers
thing is
busted.
that if you talk about that saying, I'm already starting to see some of the trees budding, but it's weird for some of the trees that didn't lose all their leaves as as they're budding. I walked around the neighborhood for like 5 miles today, and I saw several trees that some of the leaves that were on there from last year were dead, but they had turned completely white.
That's weird.
Very
Um,
like the
and in
color had been drained all out of them.
and in the deep south, it's April showers wash away all the fucking pollen from the end of March.
That's the one thing I am not looking forward to. I already went
Dude,
ahead and I bought myself my 2 bottles of Flonase for the year.
dude, it's terrible. I don't even get allergies or anything, and I see what's going on. Like the car is green. Our blue car is fucking green, dude.
It, I'm not looking forward to like we all know my favorite colors are blue, black, silver, and yellow. And I don't want to be seeing yellow pollen all over my car every single morning. So I'm gonna have to like park a lot further away from the trees here.
Dude, down here it don't fucking matter. It don't matter. But enough about the snow that I have replaced the regular snow with in my life. But Jim, we may not have a special title as you mentioned this evening, but we do have a shit ton to get to. So what do you say we hop right into it? And let's not be here 2 hours tonight.
It's the three biggest topics in the world of sports from the last week. Get ready for the Wise Guys hat trick.
As some of the graphics are going to be a little bit delayed because for whatever reason my mouse is disconnecting constantly tonight. So I think there's got to be an issue with the Bluetooth update on my Chromebook. But we started with 68 2 weeks ago. We're down to 4. There are 3 games left in this tournament, Michael.
Hard to believe that we started this just a few weeks ago, where we made our picks on the air, and they were dog shit. At least mine was.
Maybe
Lost
for
my
maybe
champion in the
for
second round.
maybe for you, as I'm actually looking through my bracket, I only lost 1 game in the Sweet 16 and 1 in the Elite 8. I am actually at 74% winners in this tournament right now. I've not had a tournament. As a matter of fact, I've actually got my brackets on my Chromebook going back to 2018. I've never finished above 70%. I'm guaranteed to finish no worse than 70% right now.
Well, that's good, man. That's good. Hey, real quick, speaking of college basketball, did Cleveland State win?
They did not. They
Damn
fell
it.
behind early and just could not finish off. So
Damn.
it begs the question, who was the third man?
Whose side is he on?
Obviously not ours.
Not yeah, no,
So
not ours.
if you saw my Facebook post earlier in the week, you'll get the reference.
If you have a brain and watched wrestling in the '90s, you'll get the reference. But it is a chalk Final Four, the first time since 2008. Duke will play number one seeded Duke will play number one seeded Houston, and you have a challenge in the SEC as Florida will play the number one overall seed Auburn in the second game to get to the championship game. Was it a week from tomorrow?
Yes, the semifinals will actually take place on Saturday night. Duke will be the first game. Florida will be the second game. And then the championship game will take place 1 week from tomorrow. I want to say that game will tip off somewhere around 8:30.
Who do you have in your bracket winning these two games? You have a Florida Duke final.
I wish I did, but Florida for the last 2 games, the struggle that was UConn, the way that they fell behind and never could pull away, and the fact that they had to go on a 14-2 run within the final 5 minutes to get ahead, to be able to pull even with Maryland. I like Auburn, and I think even though as good as Houston is playing, I think Duke is just lights out the best team of the 4 in this tournament. I have an Auburn Duke final, as much as it pains me, because we all know if it was a Florida Duke final, it would be basically the equivalent of a Mets Guardians World Series for you. I would be
Yeah,
insufferable because I would never be able to watch it.
yeah, no, and I'd watch a Mets Guardians World Series. Not gonna want. We think we all know where my loyalty would lie, but that's just me. And listen, just to break it down, Cooper Flag is disgustingly good. Like I didn't watch much because I didn't watch much college basketball this year. I mean, obviously, whenever the Buckeyes were on, that I could watch it, I did. I've been so into what the Cavaliers have been doing that's been my basketball watching for this year. Um, but I've watched him play, whether it be highlights or replays. Holy cow! Is he going to be one and done?
He's you got to figure he's already the number 1 pick in the draft. I don't care who's coming out of Europe. I don't care who's coming out before him, or who else is basically use it, amplifying their stock. The kid from Auburn is going to be a top 10 pick. You got to figure Walter Clayton Jr. from Florida is going to definitely be in a lot in the lottery. Houston's got a couple of guys that are in there. You've got a lot of really, really good players in this tournament, and a lot of guys coming over from Europe and also coming up from the G League. Cooper Flag might be the first unanimous number 1 I've seen in a number of years. Remember, Zach Edey wasn't even number 1 last year, and we all thought that he was going to be that. He was a second-round pick last year.
He's played really well this year, though. I will give him
He
that.
has.
Um, if I had to guess, I think Duke's going to be a little too much for Houston to handle. And I listen. I'm going to ride with your Gators. I am. I'm going to ride with your Gators, and I think that Bruce Pearl, not being able to win the big one at Tennessee, is going to come over to Auburn and bite him. And obviously it did because he didn't win the SEC tournament. But I think that he will lose his national semifinal, and we'll get the Jim Crinity no one talked to him game in the national championship, and get the Cameron Crazies playing against the Gators. And I will be honest with you, I hate saying it because I've said it so many times in my life because of the way the program has been for so long. Duke's going to win the national title.
Look at the coaches. Let's take the players out of this. Look at the coaches that we had involved. You had Bruce Pearl against Tom Izzo today, and Michigan made that game a little bit closer than it really had any business being in the second half. But you didn't hear a whole lot out of Michigan State this year, and sure
No,
enough, Izzo's in another Elite Eight. But you got Todd Golden, even though mired in controversy, earlier in the year for the stories that came out with him, against Bruce Pearl, who's, got the rap of, being the guy who can never win the game. You got John Shire taking over for the guy, for the greatest coach in the history of the game, not named John Wooden, and
true.
Kelvin Sampson, who again is it's not even so much not even getting it's not so much not even winning the big one. Houston, outside, granted, it is um their second Final Four this decade. Their last one was 2021. Auburn's was in 2019. Duke was there in 22, and it's Florida's first Final Four since 2014. Um, the last time that Florida was a 1 seed as well. But again, look at that realm of coaches, because Sampson is one of the most respected coaches in the country, and he's got to go up against John Shire, who's quickly establishing himself as a top 5 coach in any program.
I tell you what, John Shire really did it for me when I heard Pat Beverly tell stories of how good of a player he was. Um, unfortunately getting the finger in the eye and having the injury end his career. Shire has done wonderful things with Duke. Whenever you have an iconic coach retire or leave, and then you have to bring in somebody behind him, you're always wondering what that's going to be like. And Shire really hasn't taken a step back. He has done so well in both recruiting and keeping this program together. Bruce Pearl has really been really good wherever he's gone. Uh, Sampson is a phenomenal coach. He's got Houston fans thinking about Phi Slamma Jamma a little bit, but this is going to be good. I think this will be two of the best national semifinals we've seen in a long time.
I mean, look at the storylines that you're going to have involved. If you got Pearl and Sampson, who are legends, in these parts. They've been around for a long time, and then you've got Golden and Shire, who are less than 4 years at the helm of their current programs, getting their teams to a Final Four, and a lot of people are thinking it could be those two matching up. So you got the possibility of the two young guns, the two vets, or a 1-1 here. So we're going to have a phenomenal the Final Four in San Antonio next weekend.
Yeah, and Houston basically having home court advantage. Granted, it's across the state, but it's still in Texas. Jim, so you think it's going to be Auburn and Duke in the final?
If I'm looking through the path that they took, Auburn naturally got a play-in winner in Alabama State. Struggled a little bit with Creighton in round 2, whooped up on Michigan, and then we saw what they did with Michigan State today. Naturally, the number 1 overall seed, and they didn't actually have. I think that they got a little bit easier of a road because of the fact of Iowa State going out to Mississippi in the second round in that stunner. But when you look at if you go across the bracket, Duke had got Mount St. Mary's in round 1. Struggled a lot against Baylor. We all thought that them in Arizona was actually going to be one of the better games in the tournament, and then just completely clamped down on an Alabama team yesterday that was number one, was in the top 5, if not number 1, for a reason this year. I thought that game was going to be a lot closer than it was. I did not expect Duke to basically shut Alabama completely down most of the game. Houston struggled. I thought that Gonzaga could get them in the second round, and until late they had them. Kind of ran over Purdue. The Houston-Tennessee game earlier today, I did not get a chance to watch very much of because I wanted to get my walk in the neighborhood before it started raining again. Let's all be honest, anytime you have to watch Tennessee, nobody's a winner. But then with Florida, Florida goes out and pounds Norfolk State. They nearly got tripped up when we were on the air last week by UConn. They should have lost to Maryland, except for the run that they went on. And then Texas Tech had their number yesterday afternoon. And then again, Walter Clayton Jr., who's going to be a finalist for the Wooden Award, for the Naismith Award, I should say, gets the Gators on a 14-2 run in the final 5 minutes to be able to get them to not only get erase an 8-point deficit, which was the largest lead of the game for either team, but get Florida to pull ahead. And Florida's trouble, I think that's actually going to that Auburn's going to be able to take advantage of here is that Florida in this tournament, a lot of their bigs have gotten in foul trouble very early, whether it's Condon, whether I can't. His name is eluding me at the moment. I'm looking it up as we speak. But their center has actually not been much of a factor in a good chunk of these tournament games. Elijah Martin has played well. Ruben Chinyelu, that was his name. He only played 11 minutes yesterday and only scored 2 points. And Even though he didn't have foul trouble, but you had Thomas Haug, who had 4 fouls yesterday, even though he scored 20 points. Denzel Aberdeen's been in foul trouble. Will Richards been in foul trouble. So Florida gets themselves in a lot of early holes, and I think Auburn, when these two teams met, the only time that they met this year was shortly after Auburn um, got their number one ranking back late in the year. And Florida was starting to get first place votes, and Duke had actually eclipsed Auburn for the number one. Um, and then Florida goes into Auburn, and even though the box score only says 9, it certainly was not that close. And naturally, they did not meet in the SEC tournament. So I think Auburn certainly has the revenge game on their mind in a neutral site and sees what kind of holes Florida likes to dig themselves in early.
Yeah, Auburn seems to have a team, to use a football reference. Don't fall behind, because they will grind it out and end you basically. So yeah, as much as Auburn can do that, there's something about the way Florida has played, where yes, they should have lost 2 games, and they won them both in dramatic fashion. Of course, the big run by what was the player's name again?
Walter Clayton Jr.
Yeah, but the big run by Clayton, um, getting some calls and playing better down the stretch than UConn. I just think they're going to pull a rabbit out of a hat and win this game. But I don't know if anybody's got enough to stop Cooper Flagg and the boys from Duke. So,
Especially with the fact of sure, Cooper's putting up great offensive numbers, but it's not even so much his passing. I'm sorry, it is his passing. It's not so much his defense, but Duke is very long. But the difference is Houston is also very long and very athletic. Duke is a better shooting team. Houston is a much more physical team. So this, I hate to bring this idea up, but this is going to remind me a lot of those great Duke and Kentucky rivalries, where Duke was the great shooting team and the Kentucky was the great banger team, and we all saw how back and forth those games were.
yeah. Um, Let me put it this way: if Houston's defense doesn't show up, it's going to get ugly quick. Plain and simple. Because
And if
those boys
Houston
are
actually
get rolling.
And if Houston spreads the floor and guards the perimeter very well, I think that I think that they can certainly alter Duke's shots and kind of give them a puncher's chance, because Duke's got all the capability in the world, in this tournament, with how well all 5 players on the floor can shoot the ball from anywhere, uh, in the offensive zone. Um, Certainly altering some shots here, be able to, create a little bit more of those 50-50 balls that, you know, Flag is not going to nearly, bang around inside, like Tennessee tried to do today. And obviously, but Tennessee also dug themselves a massive hole early on in that game.
Yeah. Yeah, Tennessee wasn't beating that team. No, it just wasn't happening. Um, so yeah, let's look forward to 2 really good games coming up in the semis, and then we'll discuss next weekend. Obviously, previewing the championship game for the following night. But Jim, the guys are only half the story. That's not coming through, by the way.
The what now?
The horn's not coming through. Yeah, it was there for a second and then gone.
Weird. I'm wondering if I'm actually starting to have an issue with my mic anymore. But anyway.
Oh. So the women's Final Four is still undecided. Tomorrow, right? We have
Correct.
We have two
Yeah,
games.
the guys go Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday. The women go Friday, Saturday, Sunday, Monday.
Okay, so we have UCLA has already punched their ticket with a dramatic win over LSU. As I shove Ollie off the couch. Number 1 USC, the champion of the Big Ten regular season, and UCLA won the tournament, right?
Correct.
Okay, and USC, the regular season Big Ten champ, playing against number 2 UConn, and Paige Beckers, who, by the way, went the fuck off for
We'll
40
talk.
the other night.
We're gonna talk about that matchup. That's gonna be the focal point of this segment here. But in the other half of that, you got South Carolina making history by going to their fifth consecutive Final Four.
She is an amazing coach. And watching her play in the WNBA in the early years, I would have never guessed this is where she was going. And then we have an interesting matchup in the other Elite Eight game, as number 1 Texas will play number 2 TCU. And what's the TCU player's name? Oh, she was at Louisville.
Talk amongst yourselves. I am pulling it up.
Oh, she got into an argument with the Texas players in the post game line last year. She just transferred to TCU. What the hell is her name? She's a 2 guard. She's blonde. Why can't I remember her name?
Come on. Come on. Van Lith.
That's it. So there was some almost fisticuffs between her and a couple of Texas players. I think it was last year when she was at Louisville. Oh, yeah. That's going to be an interesting game. But let's go over to USC UConn, because that's really where this whole tournament, I think, is going to be made. Excuse me, until we get, hopefully, a Gino Auriemma Dawn Staley final. But Jim, USC, of course, is down JuJu. And to make a run this deep in the tournament without her says a lot about that entire roster and that coaching staff.
So for those of you who missed it, consensus Women's Player of the Year, JuJu Smith Watkins. I almost said Schuster.
I know.
Tore her ACL in USC Sweet 16 matchup, and this throws a huge wrench into the rest of this tournament, because you were going to have a USC team who was in the top 5 for a good chunk of the year, deserved the number 1 ranking. This is very much like how the men's tournament, where you have two SEC teams, you got an ACC, and you got a Big 12. Here, you actually could have had 2 Big 10 teams going up against an SEC, and then you've either and possibly 2 SEC teams, or an SEC and a Big 12 as well, and then you've got the outlier being UConn, in the Big East. But UConn is certainly not an outlier anytime that they are in this tournament. So the problem is now we're essentially robbed of last year. We had Caitlin going up against South Carolina in the Final Four, more specifically in the finals. But you also had the infamous Caitlin versus Angel rivalry, that also boiled over from the previous year when Iowa was in the Final Four. This is actually now depriving us the opportunity to see JuJu versus Paige, because
Yeah.
JuJu is going to miss a good chunk of next year as well.
Yeah, this is a tremendous loss for the women's game, because you figure the last 2 years it was Caitlin Clark. Well, the one year it was LSU with Caitlin against Caitlin Clark that carried the women's narrative all the way through the tournament. We wanted to see Angel and Caitlin play. Last year you had South Carolina going for the undefeated season, having to play Caitlin Clark in the national final and winning that game. This year we thought we were getting the top 2 players in women's college basketball playing a game when USC would beat UConn in the regional final. So it's a little tough. It's a little tough to swallow for people who like good basketball.
Look at
Which you
look
want to do.
look at the storylines of here. We talked about, the great coaches and the great players over on the men's side. UCLA makes their first ever final in women's basketball, the first ever Final Four. Remember, 11 championships on the men's side. Certainly, none since 1995 with Jim Herrick. Um, but um, USC not been to a Final Four in a number of years. UConn looking to get back there. South Carolina 5 in a row. Texas has been very good, and TCU from not winning a game in conference 2 years ago to now being one win away from this program's first ever Final Four. How it including as we talked about, the Haley Van Lith transfer. How good has this I mean, let's take the possibility of the Final Four matchups out of this. You can make an argument that the way that the Elite Eight on the women's side lined up arguably outclassed the men's side.
It really did. And I think the women's tournament is outclassing the men's because it's been all chalk. I mean, it's just been, with rare exception, it has been all chalk this tournament. Obviously, McNeese State being the one team that threw a monkey wrench into some people's things by being
And Drake, yeah.
and Drake. But I want to skip over the Final Four for a minute, and I want to see that final. I want to see Gino and Dawn Staley go head to head.
That would be awesome, but you got to remember.
The way, I think that would make the women's final more interesting than the men's. No matter which teams win in the Final Four for the men, if you are telling me in a national final, you are going to have Dawn Staley, arguably the best coach in the game right now, with 5 consecutive Final Fours and a couple of 3 titles, right? And 3 titles in the last few years against Gino fucking Auriemma? Come on. There is not a single sports fan or fan of women's college basketball that does not want to see that.
That would be incredible, but you got to keep in mind if you're Gino, and I'm a big UConn fan. It goes back to my grandfather, who really only followed 3 or 4 sports teams. He followed the Cavs, he followed UConn women, and Duke men. I think I might have told the story is that the night that I interviewed Michael Jordan, his last game against the Cavs, I got Carlos Boozer's autograph, and I brought it to him that night. We actually buried him with it because Boozer was his all-time favorite Duke player. That's how deep my grandfather's love for Duke basketball for the men went. And then I actually remember there was, I want to say a year or so after he passed, we had the Duke men and the UConn women both win the national championship. I want to say that was 2004, 2005, somewhere in there. But you've got Gino, who's got to go up against a USC team that is still a very good team, even though that they are missing the best player in women's college basketball. But yet they still have to knock off UCLA, who came in as the number 1 overall seed because they were number 1 in the country when the tournament began.
Or are we going to get USC UCLA 4? Because remember,
it's possible.
They split the regular season, I'm pretty sure. UCLA won the Big Ten tournament, beating USC in the final. And now we get the 4th one to put the icing on the cake. I want to see Gino and Dawn so bad.
We broke it down on the men's side. Let's go along the lines with the women. UCLA rolled in the first round over Southern. They rolled in the second round by 17 over Richmond. They won by 14 in the Sweet 16 against Ole Miss, and then took down LSU by 7 earlier today to claim their first ever Final Four appearance. South Carolina won by 60 in the first round. They only won by 11 in the second round against Indiana. There was that nail biter last weekend against Maryland that they quite honestly could have lost, and then another close one for them today against 2-seeded Duke to be able to get to the Final Four. Texas opened up with a huge can of whoop ass on William and Mary in the first round, a 17-point win over Illinois in round 2, an 8-point win over Tennessee in the Sweet 16. TCU with a 22-point win over Fairleigh Dickinson in round 1. Here's the other irony is the TCU second round matchup was a 15-point win over Louisville. So she transfers to TCU and then goes out and beats her former team. And then TCU knocks off Notre Dame uh, back on Friday I'm sorry, yesterday, uh, knocks off Notre Dame in the Sweet 16 to set up the matchup with Texas. Uh, and the final bracket, USC rolls holds UNC Greensboro only 25 points in the first round, crushes Mississippi State. Juju goes down, and then they have to hang on late against K State to set up the game with UConn. UConn wins by 60 by say go ahead and say it, Mike. They win by 69 in the first round against
Nice.
Arkansas State. They roll over uh, South Dakota State, who was the lone double-digit seed to get out of the first round in round two. They clobber Oklahoma, and then so UConn's got all the momentum right now with any of these teams because they have not been challenged at all. Whereas every other one of these games and every other one of these teams has had some form of adversity. Maybe not TCU, but they're running up against, a school in Texas who, they've been winning close games. They haven't had the best draw because they drew Tennessee, Ohio State, Michigan, and Notre Dame all in that bracket. And oh yeah, TCU, who was one of the better stories in college basketball. So Texas getting to this point going up against a murderer's row has every right to be here.
Oh, agreed. I don't think any of these teams really backed their way into the tournament and or backed their way into where they are right now. UCLA winning late against LSU. I mean, that was, I think, I want to say the girl nailed that. Is it Jacques that hit the 3-pointer? Yeah.
Yes.
She hit that three late to ice that game. Kim Mulkey's face, by the way, was hysterical. Um, USC and UConn have both won their games. Well, USC has won a couple of good games, but UConn is just dominated.
And you
Uh,
look at that UCLA LSU game. UCLA took the lead at 20-17 with 7:04 left in the second quarter on a three by Gabriela Jaquez, and they never trailed the rest of the day, but they never could pull away from LSU like they wanted to.
no, LSU, even with their star power gone from previous years recently, they are scrappy and they can play. Kim Mulkey's a great coach. I don't agree with some of her fashion choices. Um, like something that Elton John would have worn in the 70s, but still, she's a hell of a coach.
So if we preview ahead for tomorrow, ESPN's matchup predictor, according to their analytics, um, UConn is a 72% favorite over the Trojans tomorrow.
It makes sense. It's here's what I like in it too. UConn had some trip ups during the season, but when the calendar flipped to March, they went on fucking conscious. USC has been a great story in their first year in the Big Ten, um, winning the regular season Big Ten championship and getting all the way to the Big Ten title game in the tournament. There's something about Gino in this time of year, Jim. He doesn't
And
have
then
all
if you
those
look at
titles, all those wins for nothing.
And then if you look at the other matchup that we're going to have tomorrow night between Texas and TCU, ESPN has Texas favored 81% in that game. TCU has won their last five. Texas's last loss was against South Carolina, where South Carolina basically ran them out of the gym. Both teams coming into that game 34-3 overall. TCU winning the Big 12 regular season conference championship with a 16-2 record. Texas 15-1 in the SEC. I'm hopeful that TCU can actually keep this rolling. I would love to see TCU get there. I'm a bit of a TCU fan in a lot of their sports. Um, Certainly not much of a Texas fan. All fandom and everything aside, it would be an absolute great story. Plus, also, let's break up the idea of all ones getting there. Although a lot of us are now starting to think that UConn's going to crash that party tomorrow.
I think if either of the number two seeds win tomorrow, it's going to be UConn. And I will say this: I don't think either team on the right side of that beats South Carolina. I think Dawn Staley's going to her third or fourth championship game.
Are we
The last 5
possibly
years.
looking at a Gino versus Dawn final?
Jim, it's what I want. It is honestly what I want. UCLA is going to be a tough out for UConn, but this is like if we had a chance to see Coach K and Izzo, or Calipari and this year we were looking forward to Calipari and
And
Patino
Patino. Yeah.
in the men's tournament. But this is on another level. This is the greatest women's coach of all time playing against the greatest coach now. This would be if in other sports, in the NBA, this would be like a Steve Kerr Pop final. Or in the NFL, this would be a Belichick Andy Reid Super Bowl.
Because if you think about it, I know you had mentioned the greatest coach now against the greatest of all time. If we're talking Gino versus Dawn, instantly a lot of people are going to come after us. What about Pat? What about Tara? Tara only won 3 titles. I don't think Pat won a ton of them either. Gino's got at least 6, and he's also got 3 undefeated seasons. And he's got arguably another finalist in the Naismith runnings in Paige, who's going to be the number 1 pick because she already declared for the draft a couple of days ago after their season ends. Another story that was actually coming out of this tournament was that Flugé Johnson, the star from LSU, was undecided whether or not she's going to come back or declare after their loss, because the rule is, and we're going to bring this back full circle to JuJu in a moment. The rule is that you can come out and declare early for the end for the WNBA draft, but you have to be at least 22 at the time, or you have to be 22 within 3 months of the draft. So she is 22. JuJu has to come back because she's only 20. So she's got at least another year back in Pasadena for next year.
Did you see the funny moment with JuJu and Jaden Daniels?
I did not.
All right, so JuJu and Jaden Daniels are sitting there talking in the stands after she got hurt at one of the games. She must have gotten up to go to the bathroom because Jaden Daniels' mother sat down next to him in between them. And the caption is, JD5's mama don't play.
That's great.
It is.
That's great.
Sorry, I'm like so close to the camera, but the back is terrible today. Frickin' rain. I'm getting goddamn old. But yeah, dude, the next 2 nights are tomorrow night and then next weekend are going to be so awesome for people who love college basketball.
And this is why we call this the best postseason in all of sports, in all of North American sports.
Yes, it honestly is. Bias aside for Major League Baseball for October, but the 2 months of the year that really just have their own name are March and October. So say what you will about that, but yeah. So James, we have talked about the wonderful time of the year that is now. Can we please get to the last part, which is just going to drive both of us nuts, because this shit should have been over with a while ago. We're less
than a month away, and you figure with all the dominoes that have fallen in free agency, the only 2 stories that are sitting out there right now is, will the Cowboys be able to get a Micah Parsons deal done before minicamp or before the draft? And is Aaron Rodgers going to become a Steeler, which would be the final domino of any of the quarterbacks that are out there? So realistically, Mike, are we finally getting, as the caption says there, are we finally getting some clarity and some brevity in this situation, especially now with the stories that are coming out that Tennessee is very interested in keeping Cam Ward, the number 1 pick, or asking for a king's ransom for somebody to come up?
I think we've gotten some clarity. Did you see the Mike Tannenbaum mock draft I sent you?
I did.
Okay. So the interesting thing there is I think a domino that will fall if Rodgers signs with Pittsburgh. And that was he has Cam Ward going number 1 to Tennessee. He has Abdul Carter going number 2 to the Cleveland Browns. Again, a pick you and I in the coming weeks are going to dissect, and we are going to either lambaste on draft night, which I think I'm going to have Steph put Bobby to bed that night so I can be on to see this pick so we can just go to fuck in on it. Or they are going to take Travis Hunter, which I almost think would be the better pick for Cleveland. But their quarterback saga is not over yet either. But he has this Pittsburgh Steelers trading up to 10 to take Shedeur Sanders. If Shedeur is taken at 10 by Pittsburgh, if that exact scenario happens, I think Aaron Rodgers will be the starting quarterback day one for the Pittsburgh Steelers next year. They will let Shedeur sit a la Ben Roethlisberger, what they tried to do with Ben. And of course, Tommy Maddox got hurt, so they couldn't do that with Ben. And I think you will see the rest of the top 10 go chalk. If Carter goes 2 to the Browns, I think you're going to see Travis Hunter go 3 to New England, unless New England goes offensive line, which God knows they need to protect Drake May. The rest of the top 5, I think, is going to be or top 10 is pretty much going to be what everybody has thought it was going to be. I just want to pull up Tannenbaum's draft real quick. I'm sorry, I should have had that waiting.
Talk amongst yourselves. I'm going to actually go grab a bottle of water real quick, but I will be able to hear you in the background.
Okay. So Tannenbaum and Cam Ward at 1, Travis Hunter to the Browns at 2, Mason Graham, the defensive tackle out of Michigan, at 3. He had Armand Membu, the offensive tackle out of Missouri, going 4 to New England. Jacksonville taking Abdul Carter at 5. Ashton Genty, 6 to the Raiders. Will Campbell, the offensive tackle out of LSU, 7 to the Jets. Jalen Walker, the edge rusher from Georgia, who's one of the few players who doesn't have to go to AA meetings or attend defensive driving, would go 8 to Carolina. Michael Williams, the other edge rusher out of Georgia, again, who doesn't have to go to meetings and or defensive driving, at 9 to New Orleans, and 10 is Shedeur Sanders from the Bears, at number 10. Other interesting picks in the top 15. I don't know if you heard me. Kaylin's going to yell at me about the AA
Yeah.
or
Yep.
defensive driving. Interesting. They have Miami at 13 going offensive tackle Josh Simmons out of Ohio State. I think they need to go Stay Puft Marshmallow Man to rep Tua in whatever he's got going on. I'm trying to see if there's anything else. Here's something interesting. Arizona goes Matthew Golden, the receiver out of Texas, at 16. I would almost take Ibuka here if I'm Arizona, not just because he's a Buckeye, but if you want to talk about a possession receiver, you have your big play threat in Marvin Harrison. Why not take somebody who can run routes alongside him and has done it at 16? They actually have the Bengals going defense, Jim. That's shocking to me. I didn't know they knew that side of the ball existed. Your buddy Omari and Hampton, the running back out of North Carolina, the one you liked, 20 to Denver.
Which actually would give Bo Nix a little bit extra of a security blanket.
Yeah. Alex, I'm sorry, but it has your Bears going Shamar Stewart, the edge rusher out of Texas A&M, at 21. I disagree. Oh, look, Harbaugh is going to go chalk and take somebody out of Michigan. For the umpteenth year in a row, they have the Packers taking someone that doesn't play the offensive side of the ball in the first round.
So I just pulled up CBS Sports because I think that their draft coverage is a little bit better than ESPN. for a lot of the experts that they actually have out there. So I'll kind of give you a few of these. Chris Trapasso, who's very good at this. He actually has he has the Titans going Cam Ward at 1. He has Travis Hunter going to the Browns at 2. Armand Mabo, the offensive tackle out of Mizzou, he's got going 3 to the Giants. He's got Abdul Carter slipping to 4. And that's where I don't agree with this, because I don't see how Abdul Carter slips past the top 3. He's got Mason Graham, the defensive lineman from Michigan, going to Jacksonville at 5. Ashton Genty going to the Raiders at 6. Will Campbell, the offensive tackle from LSU, going to the Jets at 7. Jalon Walker going to the Panthers at 8. Shadur, he's got falling to 9 to the Saints. And Mike Green, the edge rusher out of Marshall, he's got going to 10, going 10 to the Bears. Some of the other highlights he has: Donovan Jackson, the linebacker, going to Arizona at 16. Malachi Starks, he's got going to the Bengals at 17. Jihad Campbell, he's the linebacker, he's got going to Tampa at 19. Hampton, he has still going to 20 with the Broncos. He's got Nick Emowani, the safety from South Carolina, going to the Bills at 24 in a mock trade. Emeka Buka, he has going 25 to the Texans. Jackson Dart, via a mock trade with the Rams, he has the Giants coming back up into the first round and grabbing him at 26.
So
they get their quarterback.
So here's the funny thing. His draft and Tannenbaum's draft are basically the same. Flip Jalen Carter and that other guy, the offensive tackle, because he had Carter going 5, and he had this guy had that tackle going 5 to Jacksonville. The two I like here is, yes, they have, and he has at 26 the Rams taking Jackson Dart. Your Rams, of course, they got the 2 old men in the quarterback room right now between Stetson Bennett and Matthew Stafford. But the pick I think you will like, James, is giving Emeka Ibuka to Josh Allen.
That would be fun, but also to finish up Trapasso's first round, these two we're both going to like. He's got the Chiefs taking Josh Simmons at 31.
That
The offensive tackle from Ohio State, and he has Luther Burden III, the star receiver from Mizzou, going to Jalen Hurts and the World Champions.
Oh, him with A.J. Brown and fucking wow. And yeah, I like Simmons to Kansas City because God knows they need to protect that man.
Yep.
One pick I think that will pay off big dividends is Tyler Warren, the all-world tight end from Penn State, to Indianapolis. I like that pick.
Yeah, he's got Trapasso's got him at 14 as well. Yep. A lot of these that what I'm seeing, they've all got Indianapolis going tight end. There's 6 or 7 of them on this page, and every single one of them, with the exception of one, Garrett Podell, has them going tight end, whether it's Colston Loveland from Michigan or it's Tyler Warren from Penn State.
Yeah, and Colston Loveland is the one that was going higher than Jackson Dart I'm sorry. He was going to the Chargers. The LA thing still fucks with me, Jim. All these years later, the LA thing still fucks with me. Had Colston Loveland going to his old coach's haunt in LA to play with the Chargers. And listen, I'm going to be honest with you. Chargers need more help than that. Because remember, Joey Bosa's not there anymore. Their defense took a big hit losing him, because as much as he wasn't the flashy one like his brother, he was still very, very productive. And he was healthy. He didn't miss many games. That was Nick that missed a lot of games. So the draft, we're going to do our mock draft, 2 weeks?
Yeah, maybe next week, maybe the week after. We'll decide on that here probably sometime tomorrow. But the other mock I actually wanted to talk about on CBS is Pete Prisco, who, even though we don't agree with a lot of what he says, he makes a lot of really good analysis when he wants to. He's got Tennessee going Cam Ward at 1, Abdul Carter to the Browns at 2, Shadur at 3 to the Giants. Will Campbell 4 to the Patriots. Travis Hunter, he's got going 5 to Jacksonville. Ashton Genty 6 to the Raiders. Mason Graham 7 to the Jets. Jalon Walker 8 to the Panthers. Tyler Warren, he's got going 9 to New Orleans, who they still don't have a quarterback. And Banks, he's got 10. Kelvin Banks, he's got going 10 to the Bears to be able to keep their quarterbacks upright. Some of the other highlights, he's got Shamar Stewart going to Atlanta at 15. He takes Tyler Booker, the linebacker from Alabama, to Indianapolis at 14. Jackson Dart, he's got going to the Steelers at 21. Colston Loveland, he's got going to the Chargers at 22. Michael Williams to the Packers at 23. Matthew Golden, the receiver from Texas, to the Rams at 26. Donovan Jackson going to the Lions at 28. That is very interesting. Maxwell Harrison, the star cornerback out of Kentucky, to the Bills at 30. Simmons to Kansas City at 31. And then Josh Connerly Jr., the offensive tackle stud from Oregon, he's got going to the Eagles at 32. Like, they need more offensive line depth.
Well, no, they don't need it per se, but they are getting a little long in the tooth. Lane Johnson's still there. Jordan Mailata is also, he played rugby for years, and now he's coming into this. That and Kelly Clarkson wants to sing with him.
But the Prisco draft is what I'm actually starting to see a lot of more people and experts leaning towards, and that's where I think the clarity is coming in, because now we're starting to see a lot more people thinking Tennessee going with Ward, because even though it's not the greatest draft class overall, there's some great players in this draft, but there's not a but it's a great draft for depth, not studs.
Agreed.
And even though it's arguably one of the worst quarterback classes on paper, we've said that in years past, but you're starting to see Jackson Dart move up a little bit more. You're also starting to see, and his name is eluding me, the quarterback from Louisville, starting to shoot up the draft boards as well, and get himself either in the outside of the first round or very early in the second round. And I think one of the drafts that I even sent you earlier this week have the Browns taking him at 33, the first pick of the second round, and getting Abdul Carter. So, to let you guys behind the curtain for the conversation that Mike and I had earlier this week, that one of the mocks actually had the Browns taking Abdul Carter at 2, pair him up with Myles Garrett. That's extremely dangerous, because even after Garrett gets a little bit long in the tooth, and where I think it makes sense for them to go Carter as opposed to Travis Hunter, is because you shore up the line and you get the pressure on the quarterback, which actually helps. It doesn't put as much pressure on your secondary. And Carter is, Travis Hunter is only 6 foot. So he's obviously, even though he's a speedster, he's not got the height to be able to go up and get a ball, especially if something's being underthrown when they actually throw deep, because they don't have a quarterback right now who can throw a deep ball anyway. So he's going to get a lot of over the middle type targets, and he's going to be a slot receiver, which is not going to actually benefit him in the passing game. He's a deep threat. He's not a slot guy. A Luther Burden is a slot guy, but also go deep. What's that?
Yeah, Ibuka's a slot guy.
Exactly. Hunter is not. But
Tyler Show is the guy you're thinking of.
That was it. But I like Show because he's 6'5", he's 230. He's got the size that you need to be active in this division. We understand that, I'll pose the question again. Is Will Howard getting more run for the Browns to be able to take him high in the second round or high in the third round just because he plays in Columbus? And are we overlooking somebody like a Show who actually might fit the system a little bit better?
Let me say this. And again, I'm a big Will Howard guy. Just QB'd me to a national title. Having said that, I haven't watched a lot of Tyler Show tape, so I'm going to do that. You know me, I'm not the research guy. I don't do like you do it. But I am going to watch some Tyler Show tape because I would like to say this. I want to start rooting for the Browns again. I do. I want him gone, and I want to see this team win. The thing that I think Will Howard will bring that Tyler Show may also bring, because they're roughly the same size. Um, one's arm may be a little better, one may be a little better at reading defenses. The one thing I've heard about Will Howard from all the experts is you will not find a guy in this draft that is better pre-snap and post-snap in the reads. And a lot of that is because of what he played against every day in practice and the level of competition in the Big Ten. We've talked about this. The Big Ten is quickly becoming the preeminent football conference in the country with the back-to-back national champions. And of course, the recruiting classes are starting to go through the roof. But I will say this.
So why am I starting to see Will Howard's name, sorry to cut you off, dropping into the 4th or 5th round in a lot of these mocks lately?
Because a lot of the mocks are still saying it's the Ohio State curse. Say what you want about the way people play, where they were drafted. But a lot of these players, a lot of these guys doing the mocks are mocking Ohio State quarterbacks based on everybody but CJ Stroud. And yeah, they had a run of bad quarterbacks. Schleister was trash. Herbstreit went from sideline to the booth. Don't get me started on Bobby Hoying, Joe Germain, and Stanley Jackson. Craig Krenzel was not an NFL quarterback. Went to the Bears. JT Barrett wasn't. Troy Smith wasn't. With the type of quarterbacks they had, Terrell Pryor was never going to be a quarterback in the NFL.
He was a better receiver than he ever was a quarterback.
Exactly. Braxton.
Which is why even when the Browns were that desperate, they would not put him under center.
Exactly. Braxton Miller had a chance to be what Lamar is today. Then JT Barrett went out and got them to a Big Ten championship game with Cardale. Cardale could have been a good one had he had a chance, because Cardale wasn't the run first, ask questions later. He was the I want to throw this thing as far as I fucking can. But then you have the struggles of Justin Fields because of the trash situation he was drafted into. You have the situation of Dwayne Haskins because of the trash situation he was drafted into. The first Ohio State quarterback to be drafted high into a decent situation was CJ Stroud. And all he's done is win 2 division titles. Granted, shit division, I understand. But he's won 2 division titles. He has played efficient football. And he wins. The NFL draft, the quarterbacks, it's all about situation. I'm going to say this. No one's going to like it. Patrick Mahomes would not be Patrick Mahomes if he did not land in Kansas City with Andy Reid. If he would have went to the Bears, Patrick Mahomes would now be the Mitchell Trubisky of that draft, and he'd be backing up everybody and their fucking mother. And because the Bears don't know how to develop quarterbacks. Andy Reid developed a Hall of Famer in Donovan McNabb.
I actually remember messaging, it might have been, it wasn't Rizzo and Hammer, but it was their sit-in hosts about the Browns actually trading back to 20 in that draft and taking Mahomes. And I got called out for acting a lot like Eric Mangini with the way that it drafted, with the idea of trading back. You want to go back and replay that tape from 8 years ago and actually tell me how stupid I sounded again?
I will say this again to you. He would not be what he is if he did not land with Andy Reid. I'm not saying he wasn't a great quarterback coming out of Texas Tech. I'm not saying he wouldn't have been okay in Cleveland. You have to look at the way the organizations are. He sat behind Alex Smith, a number 1 overall pick, better than what people gave him credit for, and very good at his job. He comes in, and yeah, Patrick makes his plays that a lot of guys don't. I mean, the pass from that Super Bowl where he is parallel to the ground and he hit Tyreek Hill in the face 25 yards downfield. No one else makes that throw. I will give you all the physical tools.
Yeah, but
not what he is without Andy Reid.
Yeah, but granted, he's not what he is without Andy Reid. But look at his skill set now and what it actually was, especially when he came out from Texas Tech, and you're trying to tell me that Brandon Weedon, Brady Quinn, every single one of these guys that you flopped on, with the exception of Baker, who you
Well, let's
ran
be
out
fair.
on a rail.
Let's be fair. He came out the year before Baker. So are you sacrificing the following year's draft where you got a quarterback and a cornerstone on defense in the top 4? Or are you taking him, if you're that sold on him, are you taking him at 1 and Myles Garrett somewhere else?
Yeah, it's hindsight being 2020.
Exactly.
Past is prologue. Any cliche that you want to use, absolutely. I the sucking, your stomach here a little bit. You suffer through, Mr. Huge action, um, for a little bit. You get your holiday, you get your 0-16 parade. Um, it's the Shawshank analogy. Crawl through a mile of shit to come out clean on the other side.
I agree. Now, and it's the same thing the year after. I will say this till the day I die. Baker Mayfield is the only quarterback from the 2018 class that could have survived those 4 years in Cleveland. Josh Allen would not be Josh Allen if he didn't land in Buffalo.
I mean, he would have been able to take the pounding a little bit better, but it's like I think it's partially Baker's moxie
That's
and his
exactly it.
swagger, which is why he survived that long.
Mm-hmm. And that's why also I don't think Josh Allen runs on the field that night against the Jets and the entire region changes. I don't think Sam Darnold runs on the field that night against the Jets and the entire region. Baker was a different dude coming out. And we're fans of his. Apparently he hits dingers left-handed. Who knew? Um, but yeah, no, it really depends, especially with quarterback, where they land. Howard will be a good fit. He's not a starter right away. And I think that's where the Browns need to find a guy who can start right away. By the way, Tyler Show is not going to start either. They've got more that team's got more problems than getting Abdul Carter and a quarterback at 33.
Yeah, I think he actually would start at some point during the season. I don't think he
Agreed.
starts day one, but right now, if I'm the Browns, you go best player on the board available, and I think right now with the way that and we'll draw this out when we do our mock either next week or the week after. But I think for my money right now, it's got to be Abdul Carter at 2, and then maybe you take a flyer on Tyler Show um, at 33. I like if you're not going to land a guy like Dart in the first round because you got to figure Dart's going to go either to Pittsburgh or the Rams in the first round. He's going to sneak up there because they need a quarterback. They need a young quarterback in that room. So I don't think Jackson Dart gets out of the first round here just in those scenarios. I don't think he's talented enough, even though he had a really good showing at the combine and his pro day. And granted, Will Howard had a phenomenal pro day. It doesn't mean that Will Howard's going to get himself back into the first 2 rounds. I don't think,
Mm-mm.
unless somebody takes a flyer on him midway through the second round or maybe even into the high third. But I think Tyler Show might be the way that the Browns are looking, is that they can mold him into with his size. He's got the tools, and they can mold some of his intangibles into the kind of quarterback that they need to succeed in this division. Because look at the school that he's at or coming out of, and look at the last major quarterback that came out of that school. He's playing for your rival right now.
Yeah. I didn't know Sashi Brown was with the Ravens now. Speaking of, yeah, because he did something about Justin Tucker today. Um, probably adding him to the Deshaun Watson Hall of Fame. Anyway,
Hmm.
interesting thing you sent. I looked at that message you sent me about the mock that had Howard going in the 5th round to the Raiders. every single analyst says he needs to hold a clipboard for a couple of years. Who the Raiders just go get?
Yeah.
And if they take Ashton Genty in the first round,
Give it about a year. Give it a year or two to gel, and yeah, I
yeah,
think that would set up very nicely for the Raiders. I think the Browns, as bad as they are, if they get somebody like the mock that I showed you, where they're taking that running back from Tennessee in the third round, the bruiser, they're getting that stud offensive lineman from NC State early in the third. You're getting Slow in the second, and you get Carter in the first. That's one hell of a draft,
it is.
regardless of what you walk away from. Because even if Slow is not playing day one, he's in that room and he's expected to be your starter in the second half of the year, whereas the other three guys are looking to be starters basically on day one.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And the one thing I will say about this, how this sets up for the Browns really well, is if the great value Jerry Jones keeps his fucking hands out of it, I think Barry can put together a really good draft. I really do. I haven't lost faith in him, other than there have been some stupid moments, just like all of his predecessors. Um, they have a chance to fix this thing quickly. I fear they will do like we talk about. Mets are going to Mets. I fear the Browns are going to Browns.
Let's see, because I think there's a lot of credence to what John brought up in the translator last week when you gave him Andrew Berry, as I was remembering it, cutting the video before we went live tonight, is that he swings and misses on 300 attempts, but he hits that one home run and everyone fixates on that one home run. This year, they've got the possibility, if it's not Cam Ward, it could be Abdul Carter. And I think those are the only two guaranteed home run type players at the top of that draft. Travis Hunter is going to be a great NFL player. I don't think he actually fits the holes that you need right now or the possibilities that could come with it. Um,
Let me
Cam
ask you
Ward
this.
Cam Ward would be your starter day one, unless you actually want to run like Pickett and Carson Wentz or whoever out there, and then bring him in midway through the season and let him get acclimated first. But I think Abdul Carter is the slam dunk. If he's there at 2, you grab him and you shore up your entire defense for the next decade.
Let me ask you this, and then we'll get to, we're at an hour and 8. What if they sign Kirk Cousins in the next couple of days? Do you take Travis Hunter to give him the extra weapon, and then down? Now you're not going to get the Abdul Carter type edge rusher, but you can shore up your defense with down draft picks, and then take a quarterback later. Maybe even take Will Howard with your 5th round pick. Would you be okay with doing something like that?
No.
Okay.
Absolutely,
Throw it out there.
absolutely not. Because at that point, I understand that you're trying to plug the dam and trying to stretch as much as you can out of Kirk Cousins, who's got the history with Barry from their time in Minnesota. We all remember, um, but um, but you also want to be able to put a guy in that room where I think this is why they went out and got Kenny Pickett, and also the Carson Wentz is certainly in play for them, is that if you're going to plug that room with a guy, you want somebody in that room who's going to be able to be in there should something happen to your quarterback, whether to your young quarterback, whether that's Slow, whether it's Shadur, whether it's Dart, whether it's Cam Ward. You've got your shiny new toy. Pickett, granted, only in his 3rd year, but we know he started, but he's not a starter.
Mm-hmm.
Carson Wentz, you're basically just bringing in at that particular point to fill a body at this point. You're shoving Watson basically out the door after this season. If he doesn't play, if you rule him out for the whole year, great. At that point, you can cut him whenever you want to, because you're getting the insurance money back. And also, basically, you're using that money to pay the buyout before June 1st next year. So That's completely done. You don't have to worry about that anymore. You just got the salary cap shit to deal with. Um, you know, and it's not like you're going to be able to convert any of this money next year if he's not going to be on the roster before June 1 when any of that would kick in. Um, Cousins is going to be 37 years old. What good is that going to do? Because you're only going to have him for a year, maybe two. He's going to hold a clipboard and then he's going to ride off into the sunset. If your quarterback room is damaged enough to where you got to ride a 37-year-old guy out there, it's Flacco all over again. And unfortunately, there's not enough talent right now with as opposed to how there were a couple of years ago, because you still actually have to try and wake up Obo Okoronkwo, who for some reason couldn't see the field for much of this year. You still don't know what kind of quality you're going to get out of Denzel Ward with his injury history. He's one concussion away from the NFL ruling that you're not allowed to come back ever. I don't care how small or how insignificant that next concussion is going to be. You still don't know what kind of performance, if any, you're going to be able to get out of Jeremiah Owusu-Koramoah this year after the neck injury. Um, is Cedric Tillman going to rebound from how good he was 2 years ago to how injury riddled his season was last year? We know we still have the elephant in the room of Nicholas Jamal Chubb, which is why I think they're actually going running back here at some point in the mid section of this draft. So it's going to be very interesting, but I don't think a trade a late round pick to get a Kirk Cousins is in the cards here.
I look forward to our draft night reaction because I just had a thought. And it would be epic, horrifying, borderline suicide. I didn't hear anything you just said.
Shit. There's got to be something going on with my mic.
Which one did you do?
Holy Christ.
Yeah. So could Andrew Barry go Vontae Mack and take Ashton Genty at 2? I'm not saying to be smart. I'm asking if he could.
Unless he's planning on throwing the ball, having Genty develop a little bit of an arm for a 5'9" back. Wow.
What?
I just went to ESPN. Well, I had ESPN up and it just refreshed. Breaking news before we go to halftime here. 7 ejected as a brawl involving the Pistons and Wolves spills into the crowd.
Malice at the Palace Part 2?
I mean, this one was in Minnesota, but...
Oh. Yeah, I just saw that.
Yeah, we'll be looking at that at halftime here. Speaking of which...
And I see Ovi's got 5 to go.
Yep. So we're going to get out for halftime. We'll come back. We'll do a quick blast. We don't have too much on the slate there. We'll actually get a translator in and we'll get you guys out of here at a decent hour tonight as we're trying to shave the show down a little bit here.
I didn't shave before the show, so maybe we should do the shave.
Neither did I, so.
I still need a haircut.
We'll see you guys in about 5 minutes.
See you in a few. And we're back.
As I was watching the tussle, and then also CBS Sports put up a very, very good article that I'm actually going to read after we get off the air tonight about the going back to college basketball for a minute. Kevin Willard, the head coach of the Crab Five at Maryland, abruptly leaves after 3 seasons to take the newly opened job at Villanova, and the story is that after spending 12 years at Seton Hall, he takes the job for 3 years at Maryland, and basically, um, from what I'm reading early on, played them like a drum, one of the boosters actually said, talking about how much better the Big East is than the Big Ten with the priority that they put on basketball, and then basically darts back to the Big East.
He's not wrong. The Big Ten's cash cow is football. They've become more of a basketball power, but their cash cow is football.
Yeah, but let's be completely honest. Even though they are a good basketball conference, you know, Creighton is always going to be a mid-major in there. St. John's got back there this year, but came up short early. Um, are they really going to be able to continue this trend about recruiting players to play at MSG from the New York, from the five boroughs here as their campus? UConn is always going to be the preeminent team in that conference, and Marquette is always going to be the one who always gets there and can never get past the hump. With how early with how they've bowed out every season in the last 5 years under Shaka Smart getting into that tournament. Yes, they are a great basketball conference. Arguably, they're a more entertaining conference than any of the other ones out there. They're not as dominant as the SEC, but realistically, even after he takes that Villanova job, short of cloning himself after Jay Wright, how much more difference is it going to be? Is he going to be able to creep up on those guys and get Villanova back to where they were not even 5 years ago?
Yeah, it's going to be an interesting job that he's going to have to do. But I will say this, as far as the aura and mystique of Big East basketball, remember, they play their tournament at the Garden. There is something about basketball at Madison Square Garden. Even the NBA, it's still the world's most famous arena. You're still going to play St. John's there every year. You're still going to play the tournament there every year. It's just something about it. There's absolutely something about it, which we'll get into more as especially if the tournament's over and some of these other jobs fill in. Because I know Richard Pitino left New Mexico and has a new job somewhere. I don't remember where he went.
I want to say he took the Xavier job after Sean Murray left.
Okay. Again, Xavier's they're not Big East, are they?
Yeah, they are.
It's so he gonna play his daddy?
Wow.
Oh.
That's going to be interesting next season, assuming St. John's doesn't have a scandal break over summer involving Rick Pitino.
Yeah, because he was, it took him 5 years to figure out he didn't do anything wrong in the last one. James, we've watched a weekend of baseball, and I need to hear Yuke's voice.
It's the
Uke,
That is not the one that I clicked.
you're having all sorts of problems. This is no.
Hey, in case you haven't noticed, and judging by the attendance, you haven't.
You need to cut the last part just to do
You know what that reminded me of? Why you play that dumbass song? Hey, I put on the Commodores. That shit came on.
Oh God, I'm so mad. The Falco jersey was on sale in the TikTok shop. They don't have my size. I would have bought it too.
Yeah, maybe I'll wear it for draft night.
I haven't decided which one I'm wearing for draft night yet. I can't squeeze my fat ass into Chad Pennington again, so uh, it's either I go full troll if John's going to be on here and I wear the national championship gear, or what I do last year was Mangold, right?
I think so.
All right, so I think I have to go Denzel Ward this year. First round Buckeyes, gotta love them. What's in the draft tonight, dude? The second one. We need to tackle a little something, but let's start. Can we start all the way to the right? Because I know you did a sports note on it. Explain to us what happened that had nothing to do with actual fighting.
Former UFC two-time heavyweight champion Cain Velasquez was sentenced earlier this week to 5 years in prison with an additional 4 years of supervised probation afterwards uh, for multiple felony counts, um, as he pleaded no contest back in August for something that occurred back in 2022. Now, Velasquez last fought in the UFC back in 2019. And I'm not going to break down the entire sports note. If you guys want to see that, you guys can go to my channel and watch my commentary on it, or go to the sports note blog. But Velasquez fired 3 shots with a 40 caliber handgun into a vehicle containing 3 people back in 2022 after an 11-mile chase. And the reason why is that one of the individuals in the vehicle worked at a daycare that his 4-year-old son was at, and allegedly molested his son. And the other 2 people in the car were the individual's mother and father-in-law. And the shots ended up hitting the father-in-law, not father-in-law, stepfather, in the chest and in the arm. Again, non-life threatening. So Velasquez spent the better part of a year in prison and then 2 years on house arrest while awaiting trial, and while the trial was ongoing, and then was actually sentenced back on Monday, but also was given credit for nearly 1,300 days time served. So he's only going to have to serve an extra 18 months worth of prison time with this sentence, and also and then the 4 years worth of supervised probation afterwards, whereas the individual is still on trial. And Velasquez filed a civil suit against the entire family last summer.
Part of me's pissed he missed. As you know, we're 12 days away from Bobby being 4. You'd be bailing me out of jail.
I'd certainly be the one. I'd certainly be the one running the GoFundMe to do it.
Yeah. That's horrific. Now, here's my question, and this is for any legal scholars out there. If this dude is found guilty, should they then suspend the rest of Velasquez's sentence and let him beat his ass for his
See, I actually brought that up in the sports note, and that would be very interesting, because with continuances and everything, the individual in question, and I will not give his name. I will not give. I will not. I gave it on the blog and in the sports note video. I will not give it here, out of respect to Velasquez. But you don't. You kind of bat an eye for the act, but you don't condone the vigilantism that Velasquez, took with this. But there is not one person on this planet, unless you're a complete deadbeat, that would not actually think along the same lines, especially with children involved. Remember what happened with Larry Nassar last year in prison?
Yes.
If this guy is found guilty, what do you think they're going to do to him in prison with the fact that he's going to spend probably several decades behind bars? Um, I don't know if they possibly expunge part of. I mean, let's say that something happens with this, with all the continuances and then the appeals process and everything. Let's say that Velasquez completely serves his 18 months and is in the middle of his probation. Do they commute part of the probation and then expunge part of the prison sentence here? I mean, that would be interesting to see how exactly that would work. But yeah, we still need to actually see what's happening on the other side of that coin.
Yeah, that's the interesting part of it is what happens if it turns out that this is proven in a court of law that this went down. Who knows? And
Because a number of UFC fighters, Conor McGregor, his longtime rival and very close friend Junior Dos Santos, Dana White, who's his word doesn't mean shit. Let's be honest. But a number of other fighters, former teammates, colleagues, friends, have all written letters in support of Velasquez over the last 2.5 years now, as this ordeal's been ongoing. Just what kind of a model citizen he is. And let's be honest, it definitely sounds like he saw red um, in this scenario. But this is not like a story of UFC fighter, you know, gets crank and completely loses it. This is not repeated run-ins with the law, a la John Jones or Conor McGregor or Greg Hardy. This is an ideal ambassador of the sport since he retired. He's not fought since Francis Ngannou cleaned his clock in 26 seconds on a fight night main event back in 2019. I'd love to actually hear what Zach thinks about this one day. Especially, I'd love to be able to have him on if we ever get finality to what happened to the accused in this point. But this is a guy who did everything right, and was still active in the fight game, and was actually was ideal enough with his behavior and everything that when AAA Lucha Libre came to an event in Arizona, Velasquez was allowed to travel with supervision while wearing an ankle monitor uh, to that event, participate in the event, had the ankle monitor removed, and then put back on after the event, and then returned to Southern California where he was serving his house arrest.
I mean, you have to be a pretty well known character person for them to do that. So, I mean, I can't even imagine, dude. I can't even imagine. I don't want to.
Yeah.
It's going to take a handful of melatonin to knock me out tonight now. All right, let's go to happier stuff. Let's go to the last 10 games of the NHL season, and we are 5 goals away.
I hate the fact that he got one against my Sabres today, though. Although the Sabres cleaned their clock 8-5.
I'm at the point right now where I want to see him get it, especially after what he had the entire Washington roster do for Marc-Andre
Fleury. Yeah.
That was the classiest thing I've seen on the ice in a very, very long time.
As far as regular season, I was going to say the last time I saw something like that was Timu's last game, and then where he pulled J.S. Jaguar out and they skated around the arena.
Yes, I think that was the last time I saw it too.
With Washington, they've got 9 games to go. They've lost 3 in a row. They're 9 points out ahead of Carolina for tops in the Metropolitan. They're going to have the number 1 seed in the Eastern Conference. They've fallen 3 points behind the Jets. for the best record in the NHL. And oh yeah, the Dallas Stars clinched a playoff spot yesterday as they've won 5 in a row and they've got themselves to 100 points. So Washington's worry right now better not be, is Alex going to get it in the final 9 games? Is he going to be able to put up 5 in 9 games? You got to worry about, are you actually even going to slip behind Dallas when it's all said and done in the overall standings, to where if you get through and you match up against either Dallas or Winnipeg, who look like are going to be the 2 teams to beat in the Western Conference, as great as Edmonton is, Vegas always there, LA coming on strong here. And oh yeah, Winnipeg's got to worry about the fact that they look like they're going to, they're inching towards the President's Trophy little by little. Who would the Winnipeg Jets play in the first round of the playoffs right now? Oh, yeah. The St. Louis Blues, who have won 9 games in a row. Since the Four Nations face-off, the Blues have lost 1 game.
Damn. Interesting.
The Blues have actually jumped themselves into a tie with Minnesota for the last wild card spot, and they're only 6 points behind Colorado, which would knock Colorado, after all those massive moves, the Mikko Rantanen move especially, would knock Colorado into a wild card, where actually, they could end up going. They wouldn't be able to play Dallas. They'd actually have to play Colorado, and Vegas would be the first round matchup. And Vegas has won 6 in a row, and they're about ready to lock up the Pacific.
I can't believe we're talking playoffs for both NHL and NBA right now.
You're going to see
it just began.
You're going to see in the coming days, Toronto, Tampa, and Florida are probably going to end up clinching some form of playoff appearance, or locking a playoff spot up in the Atlantic Division. The Blue Jackets, the Columbus Blue Jackets, the best story in the NHL. They've now fallen to 10th in the East. But this works out for them because they are only 2 points out of that spot, that final wild card spot. As realistically, I hate to use the idea, but they have been absolutely terrible since the outdoor game in the Horseshoe.
Ah, geez.
They have fallen way off since March 1. They are only 3-6-1 in their last 10. Their goal differential has dipped to a -8. There was a point, remember, just a month ago, you and I were actually talking, not only would they possibly get out of the wild card, they could actually get themselves into a top 6. They would actually get themselves, there was a possibility they could even improve up to the 2nd spot in their division, which would get them their first ever home majority playoff series in franchise history. But they actually have games in hand. They've actually got 2 games in hand on a lot of the other teams that are kind of nipping at them.
Yeah, their season has been just something out of a storybook, to be honest with you. They have played so well after the loss of Johnny Gaudreau in the offseason. You got to tip your hat to Columbus, no matter where they land this season. I still think they will get into playoffs. I think they got a little bit of a run left in them in the last 10 games. They'll be good. Before we go to the middle one there, Jim, I want to say congratulations to the Cleveland Cavaliers. For the first time since the 2009-2010 season, the Cleveland Cavaliers have won 60 games, beating the Clippers today to go to 60-15. That's right. If they win out, they will only have one more loss in 82 games than the Cleveland Browns did in 17. On to happier things.
One or two other notes in the NHL. Very interesting with the 3 worst teams in the Eastern Conference right now. The Boston Bruins are about to miss the playoffs. Name the last time that happened, as the Bruins have lost 8 in a row.
1995.
The Philadelphia Flyers, they are tied with right now for 14th in the conference, fired head coach John Tortorella earlier this week after Tortorella sat one of his players. Actually, I take that back. Dressed one of his players and did not put him on the ice at all.
Was that the game Frank was there?
And lastly, the Buffalo Sabres, with their win today, are 1 point away from putting the Bruins and the Flyers in the cellar. But the Sabres, with 9 games to go, are likely to miss the playoffs for the 14th consecutive season. And we were almost going to do a hat trick, and we ran out of time. But it's starting to make us think, what are some of the other impressive feats or streaks you've seen in sports since the Sabres last made the playoffs back in 2011?
It's the last time the Jets made it too. And the Jets, it was 2 consecutive trips to the conference championship game,
Right.
and then fell off the table. So goes the butt fumble. So go the Jets.
I mean,
Other
think of
impressive streaks.
what we've seen since that happened. We've got 2 expansion teams in the NHL. We saw a third one move. We haven't seen expansion in in any of the other sports. Realistically, we've seen a little bit of kind of like, realignment. We've seen some teams move. We saw the Raiders go back to Los Angeles. We saw the Chargers move out of San Diego, which nobody ever thought was going to be possible. And now sharing a building with the Rams. The Rams win a Super Bowl. Tom Brady wins several extra Super Bowls. Think of all the teams that won their first ever title in that period. The Cavaliers, the Denver Nuggets, the Blues, the Washington Capitals. In back-to-back years, the Blues and the Capitals. The Vegas Golden Knights win a Stanley Cup. Seattle gets to a conference final as a relatively expansion team. Houston, the dynasty that what, and now the tainted dynasty that is the Houston Astros. Just look at everything that we've actually seen across the big 4 sports in the last 14 years since the last time the Sabres have been in the playoffs.
So was that the 13-14 season?
The Sabres, I want to say it was 10-11.
I'm sorry, 10-11. I'm sorry. How about we've had the decision and the letter in that amount of time? We've seen the NBA scoring record be broken. We will see the NHL scoring record be broken. We have seen a global pandemic.
We've seen one NBA team reach 4 consecutive finals, winning 3. We've seen an NFL team for the first time in the Super Bowl era reach reach a 3rd consecutive Super Bowl with a chance to win the 3rd one.
Yeah, I mean this is unreal. I mean, I remember year in, year out, Buffalo was one of those teams that was always in the playoffs, especially those Dominic Hasek years.
Right.
Excuse me. Unreal, dude. And that would have made for a good 6-pack, but we would taken way too long to figure that one out.
Yep.
So the last one in the middle there, MLB opening week notes. The Guardians open up taking 2 out of 3 from the Kansas City Royals. The Mets unfortunately dropped 2 out of 3 in Houston and now go to the Miami Marlins. 3 walk-off winners in their first series, beating the Pittsburgh Pirates all 3 games. Pittsburgh doing something they really can't do much of, and that's losing Paul Skeens starts this year. The Yankees beating the Brewers horrifically. And
A plus 22 run differential in 3 games.
Yeah, but if you look at it, they've done this to the Brewers for years now.
Yeah.
And now they're using illegal bats. I'm kidding. They're not illegal, but we all know if it was any team but the Yankees that brought this up and had this kind of success, what the Yankees would be doing if it wasn't them.
And Michael, arguably one of the funnier stories of the opening week of the baseball season, the Azerbaijan now Minsk White Sox are not in last place after the opening weekend. They won a game.
bear with me just a moment.
What in the wide world of sports is going on here?
The Minnesota Twins and the Detroit Tigers both got swept in their opening weekend series. So the Guardians are the only team above 500 in that division by default, but the Guardians now actually have to fly to San Diego, who started out 4-0 and are crushing the ball right now.
Yeah, they put the Braves on their ass, which was interesting. The thing that I want to bring up in that opening weekend stuff, dude, the Dodgers are so fucking good. Dude,
5-0 and a plus 14 run differential.
Oh my God. And Mookie walks it off on his birthday.
And they start a 3-game series with the Braves in Chavez starting tomorrow night.
Oh, make it 8-0, boys. Make it 8-0. The other shout out I wanted to give was to New York Mets owner Steve Cohen for allowing the teardown of the franchise in 2023 as Max Scherzer's back on the IL.
Damn it! I was almost going to give you him in the translator tonight, but I've got backups. If I'm listening to the Guardians game on radio during my walk today, and Tom Hamilton actually says, "What did you expect? He's 41 years old."
I mean, seriously, I don't wish him any ill will. Obviously, he's a Hall of Famer. He's a first ballot Hall of Famer, but Luis Angel Acuna started on opening day at second base, and Max Scherzer, who was supposed to start opening day at Citi Field for Toronto, is not making that start.
And the two nomad teams in baseball actually had good opening weekends themselves, as the Las Vegas, Oakland, Sacramento, Cream
MOUSC.
City, Dick and Ball logo, any other Steve Dangle shit that I can actually, pile on here. Oyster logo, athletics finished split their opening weekend, and actually have a better and have a +6 run differential. So even though technically they are fourth in their division, they've got the best run differential in their division. And the Tampa Bay Rays, playing in a minor league stadium at least through this season, actually take 2 out of 3 in their opening series.
If I may, learned this Friday night. So, of course, for the first time I think ever on the opening weekend, the Mets had today off because Apple TV wanted Mets and Astros on Friday night, so they were supposed to play Thursday off day and then Saturday, Sunday. Well, they ended up doing Thursday, Friday, Saturday, having today off to travel. Did you know on the Apple TV Plus broadcast, you can choose your team's radio broadcast to be the audio for the game with the video perfectly synced up?
There's part of me that kind of wishes that some of these streaming services would do that, because I've got the ESPN Plus, so I can actually get that with I get one game per day in baseball. I get all of the NHL games, and I'd love to be able to see them add an option to where I can actually pipe in the radio as opposed to the TV, for the simulcasting.
Yeah, so I turned it on, and of course Wayne Randazzo, who is now the lead play-by-play guy for the Angels, but was Howie Rose's partner on 880 WCBS out of New York, and now the Odyssey station. He's the lead guy. Dontrell Willis, by the way, calls a good game too. D-Train does the Apple Plus games with Wayne Randazzo on Friday nights. But the guy who runs a 7-line, Darren Meenan, said, "Hey, remember, go to your audio options. It will give you the option for Howie and Keith, or Keith Rad, not Keith Hernandez." And I went on, and there it was. And I was like, "Oh my God." So I'm sitting here Friday night watching the game, and I got to hear, Keith Rad's call of Soto's homer and everything else. So that's a pretty cool thing.
Oh, wait, Soto actually hit the ball?
Shut up. Hey, Jim, the Gardos are 2-1 against Kansas City. Thought they weren't going to win any games against them because they were terrible.
I didn't say they weren't going to win any games. I still think Kansas City's going to win that division.
Yeah, we'll see.
Actually, I take that back. I had Detroit winning that division.
Yeah. They ran into a buzzsaw. I did like when Freddie broke up the shutout that Flaherty was throwing. Did you see what happened?
Yeah.
Flaherty's throwing seeds at him.
Somebody put together a compilation of the top 5 mic'd up moments from spring training, and There's Wind only came in at number 4.
What was number 1?
I don't even remember. I got to go back and
Number 1 was
find
Rizzo.
it.
Number 1 was Rizzo going, someone bang on the trash can for me.
That wasn't it. That wasn't even in there. And yet, There's Wind was good, but the better part of that was Chipper's in my ear and he won't leave me alone.
Exactly. Oh, man. But, Jim, we have a shot to do something. It's band practice time.
Would you shut up and just push the button already?
No, God! No, God, please, no! 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 No!
It's the YZ Translator on the Wise Guys Sports Show.
I'm forever unclean.
Yes, ladies and gentlemen, it is the YZ Translator, the best segment of the night because it is the final segment of the night. As James and I give each other names in and out of the sports world, and we pop up with the first thing that pops into our minds. Normally, I go, as I've said before, I would go over some of the greatest hits, but we have made way for what has now become the YZ Chronicle. And James, if you would please reveal the Chronicle for this evening, sir.
I'm hoping you watched one of the feeds that I had sent you earlier this week about the gentleman from the east side of Cleveland. Tell me you watched. That will make this make so much more sense.
I really do want to try a deep fried Hot Pocket, though.
So, for those of you completely out in the weeds, his name is eluding me at the moment. He is a voice actor based out of the east side of Cleveland, Ohio. He is in my neck of the woods. He's actually done reviews at restaurants literally down the street from me. But he does kind of fat guy reviews and YouTube hacks and things of that nature. And one of his signature things is he will violate his refrigerator if he likes something enough.
This dude was so funny. He was so funny. So, James, it is incumbent upon me to give you the first name of the night, and I'm going to go. Yep, you know what? I'm going to do it. James, the first name in the YZ Translator for you, sir, is Yukon All-Star, Paige Beckers.
Did that actually come through?
It didn't, so I'm going to play mine too.
Okay.
Just let me know when you're this one you can.
Okay.
Answer.
Yeah, I got to figure that out. It's something. I think this mic is shot. Do me a favor and please tee that up again, because I'm gonna have to edit this now.
Okay.
Not the sound, just the question.
Oh, your first name of the translator is Paige Beckers.
It's a shame that they actually don't include the tournament in the Naismith Player of the Year award, because after posting up 40, and God knows what she could end up doing tomorrow night, she may wrap this thing up and get her team to the Final Four again. And you got to figure, as much as this girl has gone through with with missing the better part of 2 full seasons, um, the COVID bubble, and everything else, and she is still likely to be the number 1 pick in the draft this summer. Um, yeah, her jersey is going to be retired. Um, and I would like to maybe see her. I hate to use the analogy. I would like to see her finish the story that Caitlyn couldn't last year,
Oh yeah.
where Caitlyn had the opportunity of it. I just don't know, because I think of all of the other teams and how strong they are, if she's got enough to be able to get past them. But she's definitely shown that she's got more than enough in her tank to be able to take completely over a game.
Oh, she's amazing. I agree with you 100%. Like I told you, I want to see Gino and Dawn in the final, which means she gets to a final.
Did you see the post game with her in the second round where Gino broke up?
No, but I want to go back and watch it because the Gino
It
one
was
I want to talk about tonight, I want to save for next week, previewing the finals, is what he said about the tournament.
Yeah, that I did see.
Save that for next week.
Because Paige was out there answering questions after going off in the second round, against South Dakota State. Um, and then and then Gino is just he's a misty-eyed mess, because he knows that with everything that Paige has been through, and he even brought it up, it was her last game in stores.
I did see he broke down during that, but I did not hear the entire. I'll go back and watch that. Who you got for me?
Speaking of which, not your name just yet. Did you actually see what happened on TV, where somebody who we've actually brought up multiple times on this show had to choke it back in front of a worldwide audience? And I'm talking about CM Punk.
I did see that, and I saw what Roman said, and then I saw Rollins going after him. And I hope that was part of the plot, not CM Punk's reaction, but those two doing that.
But the interaction between Heyman and Phil, just, you could definitely tell there was like, I'm wondering how much of that was, you knew it was scripted, but the fact that it was actually getting said on national TV and confirmed, and 25,000 people in that, in the arena in London, um, in London, reacting all at the same time as well. And as much as those two, the history of those two being linked together, we talk about Heyman and Reigns for the last, 4 or 5 years, but we all remember the summer of Punk 10 years ago. We all remember that it was Paul who basically got Punk to Connecticut, campaigned for him. And I love the little fact that he subtly threw. Did you catch where he subtly threw Jim Cornette in there?
I did not.
He actually said, "Thank you to Chicago, thank you to, Louisville." And as corny as it may sound, he didn't do the bunny quotes, but the second he said it, everybody knew, because he said it immediately after Louisville. Because remember, Cornette was running the show down there in Louisville.
Yep, I do remember that.
So, Michael, your first name in the YZ translator tonight. He's had himself a very inauspicious start to the 2025 MLB season. It's not Aaron Judge. We're going to go the opposite direction here. We're going to go with Rafael Devers.
You don't play very well. Never mind, you don't play. You play third base. What?
He made me play third base.
Dude, you were making fun of Soto. whose OPS is over 1,000, and he's got a 400 or 460 on base after 3 games. Has Devers even sniffed the bag?
It's just hilarious that Judge goes off for what, 4 home runs in 3
4
games,
dingers.
or yeah,
Yep.
4 dinger, and Devers, anytime he put the bat on the ball, it wasn't in play.
Nope.
Yeah, I mean, we remember the jokes like coming out of the home run chases, like, this guy's on pace for 230 home runs. You know, he hits home runs on opening day. Um, and Devers on pace for like 430 strikeouts or something.
Something like that. So, James,
I mean,
speaking of base,
go ahead.
finish up. Go ahead.
I was gonna no, I'm not gonna say it because I got a feeling the way you cut me off, I got an idea where you could be sending me here.
James, your second and final name is former Cardinal standout and now current member of the Baltimore Orioles. It's Tyler O'Neill, right?
I knew you were. The second you cut me off, I knew this is where you were going. We talk about nobody's ever going to break Cal's streak. We talk about that nobody's ever going to sniff Gehrig's streak. We know that nobody's ever going to, cleanly be able to get to 70. Could this be the one baseball record that nobody's ever going to be able to touch?
I mean,
Because
6 in a row.
because number one of how obscure it is, but number
Very.
two, just how ironic it's got to be.
I mean, 6 opening days in a row is insanity. And with 3 different teams. What do you do? 3 with the Cardinals or 4 with the Cardinals?
I want to say it was 4 with the Cardinals.
4 with the Cardinals, 1 with the Red Sox, and now 1 with Baltimore. Unreal.
And if he continues that pop, you figure you've got him, Rushman.
Jesus Christ. Did you see Adley this week? Has that one ball crossed the border?
I was listening to the Guardians game today, and they brought this up. And Tom Hamilton, there's a reason why he's in the Hall of Fame, or will be enshrined later this year, for obscure stuff like this. That could the 2018 rookie class be arguably one of the greatest rookie classes we will ever see in baseball?
Let's see who came up in 18. Wasn't Hosey because he was here in 16.
That was Adley Rushman.
Rushman didn't come up in. You mean the draft of 18?
Yes.
Okay, so Rushman didn't come up to like 22. So the draft of 18. So Adley Rushman.
Well, the thing is they all came. The players that he mentioned all came in the same season. They all came up to the bigs that year.
All came up to the bigs in 2018. So that's
I'm pulling the
Judge.
no.
No, Judge was 17. So Rushman was drafted in 18. Was Gunnar Henderson drafted in 18 too?
Was this it? Okay, yeah, here it was. It was the 2022 rookie class.
Yep. So we got Adley Rutschman. We got there's a couple others that are just escaping me.
Julio Rodriguez,
Oh.
Adley Rutschman,
Mm-hmm.
Michael Harris,
Oh, yeah.
Spencer Strider, Stephen Kwan,
Jesus, that's right.
and Bobby Witt Jr.
Yeah, this is the best one. No, the ones that came in 15 are gonna be better. Correa, Lindor, Tatis. Those boys are gonna be
God, some of the other names that they've actually got on this: Johan Duran, Jose Miranda, Felix Bautista, Oscar Gonzalez, um, Brendan Donovan,
Donovan's good.
Brock Burke, Vinny Pasquantino,
Ooh.
and just some of the other names as honorable mentions on here: Bryce Elder, Braxton Garrett.
Yeah, that's a great class. 17, 18, and 19. You figure you got those boys in 18. Judge led the group in 17. Alonso led the group in 19.
And oh yeah, you're right. Gunnar Henderson was a part of that class, but didn't have enough at bats to really kind of qualify for anything.
Yeah. Baseball's in good hands, Jim.
Baseball's a game. Games are supposed to be fun. Where's my aim and flame?
Mookow.
Michael, your second and final name, we brought him up earlier in this in the second half of the show, very, very briefly. And I kind of want to see what you have to say about him because he's got an attachment in years past to one of the teams that you follow or are a fan of. The recently fired Philadelphia Flyer head coach John Tortorella.
Torch has been a dumb fuck for a long time. I never liked him. I mean, I'm still beholden to Mike Keenan, for Christ's sake. And I don't like Tortorella. In an era where coaches are handling different personalities in their locker rooms, Tortorella is a schmuck. And he's not a good coach.
I mean, he's great for a soundbite, but
that's it.
Yeah.
He's terrible. Good riddance to bad rubbish.
For every Paul Maurice and Jim Montgomery,
there's 2 or 3 John Tortorellas.
That's the problem.
Yeah. So as we wrap up tonight, Mrs. Reekin is upstairs working on episode 3 of the W2's podcast and putting that together to be posted in the next few days. And we will come at you guys again next Sunday on the 6th of April. We will preview the upcoming college basketball championship games, which will be all set up by then. We will talk a little more baseball. We will get
the men will be set up because they'll be playing on Friday. We'll probably be on the air while the second women's game is set up, so we'll know at least one of them by the time we come on the air.
And we'll do the mock draft on the 13th. Because after that, we're off on the 20th, and then we come back for draft night, which hopefully will be another 4 Horsemen episode. So we will see you guys in 1 week. God, it's fucking April already, dude.
there's almost part of me that, like, if I would have had more time, I could have actually played Def Leppard's "Foolin'" because it's on Tuesday.
Very good. Very good.
And then there's part of me that would actually want to play the old Bam Margera pre-Jackass CKY. You listen to too much Def Leppard.
We've officially entered the too tired for the rest of this crap part of the show as well. But we will see you guys next Sunday. Have a great week. Enjoy the final day of March and April Fools.
We'll talk to you guys next week. Mike, I will be in touch with you sometime tomorrow. Everybody have yourself a great night and enjoy some really good college basketball by the time we come back to you guys.
See you in a week.